Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Well, today we're going to jump in and look at the Trick or Treat Lane display part 3. This is working the initial part of section 2 out of 4 if you remember right. So we're going to look at some of the things that I've done already, some of the things that we still have to do, and then really in this video we're going to do a little bit more carving and get some stone work done, get the sidewalks carved and textured and things like that, and have it ready for paint. Honestly, I'm still waiting on my glue gun, my new glue gun, to arrive. It's taken a little longer than expected, and it should be here, I believe, on Friday. Today is Wednesday, so got a couple of more days, and I don't want to get too far because then I'm just stuck. So I'll jump in and show you what we've got as far as a design and kind of show you how it integrates with the other piece. Talk about the houses that are going to be on this particular, the start of the neighborhood for Trick or Treat Lane. And then we'll go through and again, start carving that stuff and get it ready for paint. I'll likely paint it all black tomorrow on Thursday, and then hopefully the glue gun will show up on Friday, and I can start gluing and probably doing another video sometime around that time frame. So with that, I hope you're as excited as I am just to jump in and see where we're at. So let's take it off the tripod and get onto the display. Okay, so you can kind of see where we're at here on the tripod. So this is the base. Now this base that you saw on phase 1 is done. The glue has dried. It's really crunchy and crispy. I've added some fall leaves that are also crunchy and dried up. They're not going anywhere, kind of to the steps and some of the other areas there. So this one is, for the most part, done. I may add a few additional details as we start putting it all together, but then you see how this is going to then transition. You can see that the road is going to extend. You can see that the curb is cut out, and it's just kind of laying on there. Okay, so the curb is cut and ready to go. You can see that there's going to be 2 sidewalks, one here and one here. And I've already taken the liberty of cutting the stairs. Now let me back up and grab a tool here. I want to show you a couple of things. So I really debated, let me see if I can zoom out. I really debated on how I was going to accomplish this. What I really wanted to do was to have this 2 inches high instead of the 1-inch foam. I wanted 2-inch foam here, but the rise to run, the slope, would have been so narrow that the stairs would have essentially gone straight up without any kind of walkway at all to the door. You can kind of see how one step is really all you're able to get to include the sidewalk. So you've really got the sidewalk, a step, and then up is kind of how we're counting that. And so with one step, I decided, instead of using the hot wire foam tool, or instead of, let me kind of pull some of this stuff back, instead of, cutting the whole thing out with the hot wire foam tool, like I did on the stairs over here, I found it just as easy and simple to take and kind of draw it out. Take this big blade here. Now this is a typical, a box knife that you get at, I got all these on Amazon. These are, I don't know what brand they are, but if you just look for box knife or utility knife, a whole bunch will come up, and I got probably a box of 15 or 20 of them. You need something really, really sharp and almost unused. And so I've got a few that are still new enough. And so that is what I used. Finally, I got it to focus there. And so essentially the way that I do that is I measure how far down I want the stairs to go. And so to me, that was about the right depth. So then this blade allows you to lock that in by pushing that up. And now your blade is locked. And essentially I just went through and traced what I drew and cut it out. Then, once I got the 3 sides cut, this side, the back, and this side, I took the blade and put it to the length of the depth of the cut that I needed, which was, let me move my big hand out of the way, about like that. You can kind of see how that would kind of lay in there like that. And then, so what I did is basically came through where the part I wanted to cut out and did the same thing, just nice and slow, nice and smooth. And then it just kind of, you pick it out, and you're left with a little bit of debris down there. That can all be, cut out and finalized if we need to do that. What I will probably do is do all that before I paint it. But some of that stuff down there, you can just kind of push in with your thumb, leave it, or your finger, and then it looks pretty good as the paint goes on. It looks a little more authentic, to be honest with you. And so I've done that. So I took the 2 foot by 2 foot base is what everything is on. All right, and that's not cut at all. And then I measured the distance for the houses to sit up here, and I cut that out. Same thing over here, cut this one out. Obviously made room for the road. Cut 2 sidewalks out, and here's where the math comes in, right? Or to make sure that you're doing it right. I wanted to have at least one step, a little entryway coming up through here, so there's gonna be some brick, probably the Department 56 matting, quite honestly, just cut it, run it up under the house, and then grass will be up all the way to the edges of it on all 4 of these homes for sure. But I wanted enough room for the road, and to have a 4-inch piece of road, you come back over here. So it's just a mathematical problem, right? You're saying, okay, so if I need this much for this base, and I need this much for this base, and this is a 2 foot section, how long does that leave me? And I don't recall the numbers now, and I don't have a tape measure, but let's just say from here to here, let's just say that's six inches. So if I go, okay, so this, and I think it was about 6 inches. So if I say this is 1.5 inches and this is 1.5 inches, there's 3, that leaves me 3 inches in the middle for the roadway. And that, I told you earlier, is about all we're gonna get. The buildings this is a very crowded display, a very narrow display. Based on where I'm going to display it, I have to build it to a certain size. Otherwise, I'd like to have my road almost a full 4 inches. I'd like to have my sidewalks a little bit more than 1.5 inches, maybe, coming up maybe on closer to, 1 3/4 inches to maybe even 2 inches, depending on how high we build these platforms. And if we could do that, then these could be 2-inch platforms and really be set up on a nice hill and slope down and look really, really nice. But you have to work with what you have. And so that's how this is going to come together. The road is actually going to be a little bit more wide than it is through here with these planters sitting back here. It's probably going to be about this wide for the entire rest of Trick or Treat Lane, which when you look at that, it looks pretty good. I don't think it's gonna be too bad. And so that's what you're gonna have represented over here. Maybe just a little bit more narrow than that, but not by much. So this is looking down the road. And if you were to kind of fly down this road, the next base, don't mind the sink, the next base is gonna be sitting back here. And then the other base is gonna be sitting back over here. And so that'll be the 4 bases all together. So on this base, house-wise, we are gonna have the Apartment 56, the Halloween party house. We're gonna have Black Cat Flats on this side of the street. Over here, we are going to have, let the camera catch up to itself, sorry about that. We're gonna have the Stairs and Glares house. Okay, and then down here, we're going to have the Bat House. All right, so those are the first 4 Trick or Treat Lane houses we're going to have. Now this, I want you to take a good look at this as we kind of step back. Let me readjust here. This camera is absolutely just killing me. So when we step back and kind of take a look at the bigger picture, that's the entire width of this display. So it's gonna be this size again, farther away from you, closer to the sink faucet over there. This is obviously not where it's going to sit, but you can kind of get the idea. And so that's about the size of the display, again, based on size restrictions that I have on where I'm going to display it. But not a lot of detail right now, but the detail is coming. Let's take a look at the sidewalk. So the sidewalk is kind of roughly cut. Excuse me, and that's okay because we're going to detail all of that up. We're going to do that today. I've preliminarily drawn some lines in. And the way I did that is I measured what I thought would be, sorry about that, camera is going nutty today, or maybe it's the operator, I don't know, it's probably me. So the sidewalk lines are drawn in there, and essentially I wanted the lines to come sequentially and end at the end of this display and look absolutely natural. I didn't want a line here because you're naturally going to have a line right here that butts up to the other base. So if I can have that line, then the line that automatically is going to occur because of the base connection, then it continues to look natural as you continue to move the display in the direction. This sidewalk over here is done really the exact same way. And essentially all I did was measure the length of the sidewalk, kind of divide that up into say, okay, how many pieces, if I make them 2 inches a piece, is that going to be enough? And kind of counting it out on a tape measure, 2 inches may get you to right here, and you're like, well, that's not going to work, right? And so I need to come all the way to here. So then you go, okay, if I go 2.5 inches, how's that going to look? And so you kind of mark a little bit and look at that. And I found that on this particular case, and it's going to be different, folks, for every single sidewalk. You just have to kind of do that to make it look even. Now you can eyeball it, it'll look fine. Again, I just didn't want to have a line here and then have a line right here at the same spot. It just looks wonky to me that way, and I'm trying to make this look not wonky. Okay, and so I've got a couple of other things that I want to do to this. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do them today on video, but what I am going to do, and you may or may not get to see it, is I've got a handheld, like a Dremel tool that's got a sanding wheel on it, and what I want to do is sort of round these little entryways here, just this part here, just this part, take some of that squareness off and kind of round them out a little bit all the way in through here. So what we're going to do today is we're going to clear all this stuff off. We're going to get us some room up here to work. We're going to plug in our hot wire tool, and in this case it's a woodworking tool, but we're going to use it for foam. And I've preliminarily drawn some, and let me focus on that, preliminarily drawn some lines. You can see them a little bit in there with a pencil on some stonework that I think is going to look good there. I thought about bricks, thought about stonework, and I think I really want to go with stonework on this one. Not that it's any easier or any more difficult. One is about the same as the other, but I just wanted to kind of break it up a little bit. I think the stonework will look really nice, and I think it'll complement the sidewalk pretty nice as well. And so that's the methodology at which I'm going to use. And so we're going to carve some stone into this area here. We're going to carve some stone into this area up here. Same thing over here, all the way down through here, all the way down, carving some stonework. And then we're going to start focusing on the sidewalks. We're going to take the tin foil. We're going to do the tin foil rolling technique on these. We're going to cut some lines a little deeper. We're also going to take this tool here, and we're going to cut these sidewalks up a little bit on the edges to kind of give them a little more weathering effect. And so you're going to see all that as we get to working on this. But that's where we're at. That's where we're going. So let me kind of take some of these houses and put them away, get us a little more clear workspace, and we will get started. Okay, so I've got the, and this is the wood carving tool, but it can be used for foam. It's got a temperature control down here that you can adjust the temperature with, and I think I've got it set right. But you want to test it on a piece of foam that you're not going to do anything with first. And the good thing about this kit, and I picked this up, I think, from Michael's, it comes with different tips that you can put on it. So I'm always trying something new. And so much like that today, I've got a new tip on this that I think will work okay for stonework and hopefully for the sidewalk. But we need to test that before we try. And then if it doesn't, we need to unplug it, let it cool down, take this tip out, and then exchange it and start that process all over again. But I just like to put a few little cuts in the foam just to see what it's going to do and how it's going to work. And so like if I'm drawing a line for a sidewalk, for example, it would just be a straight line. The lighter or the harder I push, that looks pretty good. Stonework would obviously, if you start it in some sort of a circular motion, and I think this looks like it's going to work just fine for stonework. You want a pretty good grout line in there, so I think those are going to work okay for what we need. So with that, let's get started on the sidewalk. So what I'm going to try to do is do one of these at a time. We'll put this out of the way. Hopefully you guys are going to be able to see here. And essentially what I'm going to do first is just line this up with a line that I've already drawn with a pencil, and then take the hot tool. I think that's looking pretty good for what we were trying to accomplish on this sidewalk. And so now, while this heats back up, we're going to take this blade and we're going to take certain areas of this sidewalk. And we've already got some crinkles down here, so we're going to start maybe right here. And you got to be careful because this is really sharp, but just kind of cut almost like we did on the crypts, if you've seen those, and just pull. Okay, discard that. Now, you don't want to overdo this, but a few little pock marks here and there is perfectly okay. Even into the sidewalk itself, that's going to hold black paint real nice. Kind of go at different directions just to make it look a little more beat up. Okay, so I think that will be plenty good, and then we'll take the tin foil to this and make it look like it's supposed to look, and you'll see that. Let me get started on the next one. Okay, I'm back, and I've got two different sizes. I've got a large roll and then a small roll, a little more for detailing on smaller areas. And so really, you've seen this before, but you're just going to take it and start rolling it along this sidewalk. Okay, so I think that's really it for now for the sidewalks. We will get these ready to paint. They're essentially ready. All we got to do is do a flat black paint, either the water-based spray paint or acrylic craft paint, whatever you've got laying around will be just fine. But that will help us to get these things started, and that's next for these. So now let's bring the other bases over here and get started on the stonework. Okay, so I'm not going to trace anything. I've got a few lines already drawn on there, but I'm not really even going to use those. I'm just going to kind of start and see where my imagination takes me and see how it looks. At the end of the day, I would like probably 3 rows, 3 stacks, if possible, of stones, and we'll see how that's starting to look like here momentarily. Okay, so that's what we're left with on that side. I think that's looking pretty good. So now we got to flip it over and go the long side. And there's no marks here at all, so we're just going to continue that process and see where it takes us. Okay, so I think we've got the whole front side done here. Now we're not actually even gonna do this side because it's gonna be pressed up against the next base, so there's no need to do it. So this piece is now carved. I don't think I'm gonna carve this area here. I think that's just gonna be flat stone. And so maybe, I don't know how I'm gonna do that yet. I may come back to that. So more to follow, but this one's done. I'm gonna do the same for the next one. Okay, so you can see both pieces are now done and are ready to be painted. And so they look pretty good, not too bad. It'll look a whole lot better with paint on them. So let's put it all back together and see what it's gonna start looking like with a little bit of the detail on it. I also did the tinfoil rolling technique on the curb as well, so you can see that is also ready to paint. So all this stuff is now ready to paint. Let's put it back together and see how it's looking. Okay, so we've got everything back together now, and you can see the difference as we start kind of zooming into the street here. You can see how the rock wall is going to start looking there. I think that's going to look really good. You can see where the sidewalk picks up. Likewise, you can see the rock wall over here. All of this down here, much like this here, will be black. And then everything else will be painted above that. So you can kind of see how that's starting to come together. You can see the sidewalk there is starting to come together. And then as we come back across this side here, you can see the houses and the little steps there. Obviously, we've got to round those out. I think that's going to look better once we get the grass up there and get the stone and everything painted and the sidewalk glued down where it's flat. I think that's going to look a lot better. And then if we come around and look at this side here, you can kind of see the same thing here on this side of the street. Now, I am going to try to put street lights on this. This is going to be a unique build because there's going to be street lights on each side of the street. So that's going to make wiring this a little more difficult than it normally is in a straight one single side of the road diorama or display. So for the lights themselves, I'm going to use the Department 56 lights that I've used before, but I'm going to kind of break them apart, resolder. I went back on the website for the LEDs I told you about a few videos ago. Evan designed, found some wires with quick disconnects on them. And so basically I'm going to take the hot wire foam cutter, just the straight knife, and come straight down through the sidewalk where the lights are going to be. And then the wiring will go straight through underneath, be pulled through the other side. And then that quick disconnect will then be connected. So I've got to do that for every individual light. I think I'm only going to have 6 of those total, 3 on this side. So there'll be 2 on this side of the street and 1 in the middle of the houses over on this side of the street, the way I've kind of got it laid out in my mind. And then the next piece will also have 3. And let's talk about the next piece real quick. The next piece, as it starts coming out this way and carries on to the next piece, the next piece is going to be a curve section. It's going to be a curve section, obviously, to take us back over into this direction for the fourth and final piece. So that's going to be a little more difficult, especially cutting the curve piece for the sidewalk. You saw me do the curve video, the curve tutorial. Probably had, a couple hundred people ask me how to do those things. And so I did that same tutorial, I don't know, probably a while back, 3, 4, 6 months ago. I don't remember exactly, but I'm going to repeat that same process on this display here. That's going to be a curve piece coming up next with 4 more of the houses on it. So that'll be 8 trick-or-treat houses. And then the last base piece adjacent to the town will have my final trick-or-treat house, trick-or-treat lane house, and then the church, the pumpkin patch, and the graveyard. So that's the plan. It's starting to come together slowly but surely. I'm waiting on a couple of tools to show up to help me do some better work. And this one is ready, I think, for paint. So that will be coming next, the painting, and then we're ready to glue it down, cut holes for wires, cut holes for lights, and we are ready to go. Okay, well, hopefully that was an easy tutorial to follow along with for the third installment in this tutorial series. We really looked at how the bases were cut, what kind of went into that design, how the houses are going to look, what houses are on the display, and then obviously we finished by carving out the rest of the sidewalk, texturing the sidewalk, and then carving the stonework into the bases that the houses are going to sit on. And so got a lot done, and it's starting to look pretty good. As you can see, the details are pretty cool looking when you see them in just the naked foam, but once the paint goes on there, that's when it really starts to come to life. And that's the fun part, that's the enjoyable part. To me, that's the artistic part, is kind of envisioning that from a simple sheet of foam and then seeing it in the stages, leading all the way up until the houses and the people and the lights and everything are on. And then hopefully, if we've done it right, it'll be very detailed and very organized and very nostalgic looking. I've had several people say they wish they could shrink themselves down and walk through the village. I'm right there with you, folks. If I could do that, I absolutely would. And that's the thought process that goes into my mind as I'm trying to create these vignettes. There needs to be some sort of a flow. There needs to be some sort of a story told in designing these trick-or-treat villages. And there's nothing wrong, I suppose, with just taking, I've seen huge collections. I've seen people with hundreds of homes, and they simply set them side by side by side by side by side by side. They plug them all in, and at night it looks amazing. The lights are everywhere, but there's not a lot of detail. There's not a lot of storytelling, in my personal opinion, with a display like that. And if you're doing that, that's perfectly okay. You've got to do what makes you happy. This is what makes me happy. And hopefully you guys are learning that through, taking your time and doing a little bit of carving work. I've had a lot of people say, I don't know that I can do that. Well, I assure you that I didn't know I could do this either, probably 3.5 or so years ago. I started this hobby, honestly, right about the time COVID hit. I had never picked up a hot wire foam tool. I had never carved any foam. But the more time you spend doing it, the more time you spend learning and watching other YouTube videos. There's not a whole lot with foam at this point that I don't think I can't do. You just got to get in there and try it. So I would encourage you, if you don't think you can do this, just get in and try it. Watch my videos over and over again. I try to make it pretty simple and straightforward. So hopefully it's helping. Please leave me comments and tell me if you're learning, tell me what you want to see, tell me if there's something that you would rather see. I take every single one of those comments to heart. I try to answer every single one of them. Hopefully you can see that in my responses. So keep those coming. Likewise, if you've liked this video, make sure you click the like button. And if you haven't subscribed for the channel, you need to do that, because for a couple of reasons. One, it certainly helps the channel to grow. It helps me through YouTube. And then you get notified every time a new video comes out. You won't miss anything. So if you don't have time to watch it, at least you know you got to put it on your to-do list when you get home and start relaxing for the evening. You can flip it on and see what we've built that day. and what's coming next. So that's the beauty of subscribing. You never miss out on anything. And also, if you know folks that like this hobby as much as we like this hobby, share it with them. Show them what we do and what I teach, and perhaps they'll get hooked on it and start doing their own displays. My goal is to have all the displays around Facebook and Instagram and everywhere else personally in your home to look a little more thought-provoking, a little more well-designed, and a little more themed from a story than just randomly setting buildings down. And I can see my work on Facebook, which is amazing. I'll see a sidewalk and I'm like, I know they watch my channel because the sidewalk looks just like mine. So I know you guys can do it because I've seen it and it's amazing. So keep doing that. Keep sharing it. I love this hobby. Hopefully you guys can tell that as well. And so until next time, take care of yourselves, and we'll talk again real soon.